Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. It's Paul Baines here as your host this evening, as we will be talking about Super Rugby. We'll have a look in on the All Blacks depth chart, and we'll be talking about women's rugby as well, as it's all over the news at the moment. Joining me to discuss all of that is someone who has just arrived on time with his cap. How are you doing, Steve?
Very good, thank you, Paul. Better late than never, and always a privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM.
Well, you weren't quite late, but you were very close. Let's be honest. I just clicked go live as you went boop and appeared as you came through. And you've got your retro Blues jersey there, and how the
he's gone.
I've gone and I'm back because I guess the same version, right?
There we go. We are sponsored by
pretty close.
By that bank. We won't mention
by that bank, yes. I'll just go hang that back up again because I've had a little rearrange of the jerseys in the background. That's why it's not hanging up there currently. So my weekend of rugby was we're watching a couple of games from this very chair, and also getting over to FMG Stadium to watch the Chiefs versus the Blues in a game that I don't think any of us saw coming. And we saw the game coming, obviously, but not the performances. Whilst I was there, I watched it with Alex, the guy behind the legendary Marty Banks Facebook page. And I'll be honest, we chatted so much that I went back and watched the highlights and realised it was a totally different game than I actually thought I'd seen when I was there, because I just didn't get time to watch it much, which is perhaps not the best way of doing it. But Stephen, did you get out and about to any games, or were you watching it all from the comfort of your sofa?
No, it was all from the comfort of my sofa. I'm pretty sure we've the North Harbour Club season has already started. They're already in round 2 at the moment. But the Auckland Club competition due to start not this weekend, but the following weekend, I think it is, maybe third weekend of April, along with the Northland Club competition as well. So still a lot of pre-season games happening at the minute. So I think with a big action-packed club season coming up, I'll pick and choose where I land, should I say, this season.
Absolutely. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a couple of beers in because I finished stocking up my wood store today. And with that achievement deserved a beer or two. I'll be honest, looking at the weather forecast, I'll be very surprised if I last past Wednesday without the first fire being lit. So, folks, hopefully you're all ready for the cold and wet weather that's coming. So looking at weather, I don't think I'm going to leave the house again until Thursday because I think it's just going to be too wet for me. And I'm fortunate that I can get away with that. So, but if you're going to be traveling around, folks, be careful. I think there's going to be a lot of very heavy weather coming over the next couple of days, which doesn't look good for the Moana playing the Hurricanes tomorrow night down in Wellington. That could be a bit wet and windy down there.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, they often say the weather is a great leveller, and that we could find that tomorrow night. But I'm not too sure if we're going to see any free-flowing rugby down in the capital city.
No. And evening, Simon, who's let us know that Belgium and Poland have been promoted to the International European Rugby Championships 2023. So congratulations to those two countries in that one. But let's kick off with some news then. And last week, I think it was, we kind of heard that Wayne Smith and Ted were both being added to the Black Ferns environment. And we've seen a few Instagram photos. I saw one from Chelsea Semples going, the professor is in the house, with Wayne Smith giving them all a bit of help. And two guys with heaps of experience that'll be really good for the Black Fern setup.
Oh, very much so. And listen, given where they landed at the end of last season, which was all pretty uneventful from a Black Ferns point of view, and given the short period of time they've got before this year's 2022 Women's Rugby World Cup, I guess they need all the experience they can get on board, and it really doesn't come any better than Sir Graham Henry and Wayne Smith. Is he a sir these days? He should be.
I don't think he is a sir, but so I could be wrong on that one. So they've joined. I think I also saw that Cron might be there helping out with the scrums as well. And if he is, boy oh boy, that's another good appointment as well. I'm not sure if I remember seeing that one or not. Now, I'm guessing you've probably not seen the news reports or have read the Black Ferns review that came out today into how things into the sports and culture piece. Have you had a chance to see that?
Yes, I have. A lot of bullet points on that, Paul, and they still keep the coach. Hey, just reversing the truck back up a little bit. Wayne Smith did receive the Order of Merit, so he's got some royal honours of sorts. But it wouldn't surprise me by the time his career is officially ended, or when he's well and truly away from the limelight down there in Waihi, that he probably ends up as a sir at some stage.
Yes. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, it's he'll do a lot of good for them over that thing. I still think they're going to struggle up against teams like England when it comes to the actual World Cup itself. But look, having that piece there will be key. But I say a report came out today about the environment that the Black Ferns had in it, and the review found that some players and management described negative experiences. Now, note here, players and management. It's not just the players here that are talking about this, including cultural insensitive comments, poor communication, and inconsistent feedback, allegations of favoritism and ghosting, body shaming, and a lack of good recruitment, induction, and ongoing support for both management and players. And I think what's key here is that poor support from management and players. It's not just the players in this case, but any of your sort of initial reactions to this?
Paul, I sense a lot of this all ties in with a real lack of professionalism for the women's game. You know, if you see the way the English women's rugby team, who are pretty revered at the moment, boy, they just look like a professional outfit, and everybody that they're playing basically looks amateur. Everything about the way that they play is probably reminiscent of any professional team that's running around, whether it's in women's football as well. You've seen how professional those teams, but there's no argument that when you do see teams like England or France and England, boy, they look professional. Everything looks good. Their structures look good. The fitness looks good. Dare I say it? You know, when you mention the word body shape, I don't think that should be perceived as a negative thing. You know, when we're quite critical of male rugby players, Paul, when we can see that they're not in condition, and always we're basically calling it as we're seeing it in a professional code. If your body shapes could be a lot better, it's criticism.
This comes down to, I guess, it's it's how the message gets across rather than necessarily what the message is, right? And I think if you actually go and start look at some of the bullet points in there, you can see that what's really come across in this is that the Black Ferns environment is not as professional as it should be, and is not as resourced. And I'm not just talking about dollar resources here. I'm talking about the manpower, the education, the quality. A lot of people, unfortunately, from a coaching point of view, the women's game has been seen as a stepping stone into the men's game, or into more senior positions, and that includes all the way up to the Black Ferns position as well. So, whereas the All Blacks coaching position is considered the pinnacle, it's not a stepping stone to something else. The Black Ferns one is to a certain degree and doesn't have the same. And that's not. I'm not just talking about the head coach here, but also the support staff as well. Because of that, you've not necessarily the coaches aren't as well educated, etc., and skilled quite often at this level. So there's a real problem there. But I think the problem, as you say, kind of starts a little bit higher up, where it goes. So for the first point in the review, New Zealand Rugby has done a great deal of positive work with players management and the New Zealand Rugby Players Association to move the Black Ferns into the professional era. However, there is no clear or consistent high-performance vision, practices, or mindset. This needs to be addressed. One of the things when I was at the Super Rugby Aupaki, was I said, hey, look, would it be possible to get an interview with the head of women's rugby at New Zealand Rugby? Now, she'd only been in the role for a couple of weeks, so the answer was no. But I said, look, what I want to ask is, what is New Zealand Rugby's vision for the women's game, not just in New Zealand, but globally, over the next, say, 5-10 years, whatever? And it was like, well, that's a big question. It's kind of like, it shouldn't be that big a question. That kind of thing should be known, and should be communicated right the way down the levels of the game. I mean, one of the big questions at the moment that's happening is for the last 10 years, the pinnacle from a high performance view of the women's game has been the Sevens World Tour. Is that now changing to be 15s? As we've seen countries like England go fully professional, Wales has become semi-professional with full-time contracts for about half their squad and retainers for the other half. So is it going the same way as the men's game, whereas actually Sevens is more of a development pathway for and in some cases being ditched entirely? If you look at how some of the Six Nations countries have dealt with it recently. So I mean, these are kind of big questions higher up that there should be a kind of idea as to which way you're going. Clearly, from this review, that's not there. And it then says, point 2, there are some capability gaps in management, due in part to a historic lack of robust recruitment, training, and/or support processes by New Zealand Rugby. So you go, they've not hired or they've not trained the people they've hired properly, and unsurprisingly, that has led to a lack of communication. And I think a lot of these points in here come down to communication issues between management and players, from what I'm reading anyway.
Yeah, listen, make no mistake, they've been caught with their pants down. If you go back only, when did they win that World Cup in Ireland? That was 2017. I think it was Paul, if I'm correct, 2017, 2018. That wasn't too long ago. Now, to give England credit, they obviously looked at what they were doing and addressed it. I think basically the New Zealand Rugby Union, I think they sat on their laurels a little bit. Paul, well, not a little bit, a lot. And unfortunately, those chickens have come home to roost. Yep. Sure, they've actually grown the game, but I think for some reason they just thought it was just going to happen generically because we've got this wonderful pool of talent out there. We've had this amazing growth in women's rugby, but at the end of the day, to stay on top, you've still got to put something into the game. And unfortunately, I just suspect maybe maybe the wrong type of mindset has come from the coaches, and I think they've probably picked off easy excuses against a lot of the players, and I think hence where a lot of the backlash has come from.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of, as you say, complacency, absolutely, by New Zealand Rugby around the women's game. And Simon says New Zealand Rugby treats the women's game as a PR exercise. That's absolutely true. And one of the things we've talked about before, I think probably more with Ashwin, was when you look at the board of New Zealand Rugby, there's not one person on there who is there's no one on there to represent women's rugby. So it's it's one of those things that will that would be one of my questions to the head of women's rugby if I ever get to have an interview with her, asking her about who she reports into and why there isn't someone on the actual board itself if women's rugby is as important as they say it is to that. So and there's some question marks. Why has the head coach kept his job? Well, the World Rugby World Cup is only a couple of months away to start off with. Secondly, it's been shown that he wasn't given the right training or the resources to do his job properly, and hence that's where some of the problems came from. And so you can understand why he's been given the opportunity to correct what he's done wrong and to have the right resources around him. So you can see that, but I mean, obviously I've gone blank to the player's name who spoke out at the end of that tour.
Everything about that tour was basically wrong. I think the lead up was lead. If we recall, a lot of the players were pulled out of the Farah Palmer Cup, and then they played a couple of games against. Was it Wales? They may have played a couple of games against as a pre-build up. To my way of thinking, they probably should have kept the players a little bit longer in Farah Palmer Cup, or even something as radical as maybe playing a restricted grade male side, 85 or 77 kg G side, just to give them a little bit more physicality. And before everybody out there goes, well, hang on, no, we can't have men playing women. We think back to the netball team when they basically played the New Zealand men's netball team. It's just maybe they just really needed a little bit more physical opposition to play against, just in terms of expectation of what they were going to meet in England. I think if the coaches had done their due diligence, they would have found that touring England and France, they were going to come up with teams that had very, very good set piece plays, were conditioned, and basically how do you come up with a plan to negate that or better it?
Or like they had in the previous year with the possibles versus probables. I mean, they could have proper internal games as well. Could have been had. Could they have dragged the Farah Palmer Cup a bit earlier to give a 2-week window for those sort of things? I don't know. These are all kind of things that could have, would have, should have. But in that one. But the New Zealand Rugby is not the only one in this situation. Over the last 2 weeks, we've had reports out from Canada and Ireland, both pointing serious deficiencies in their women's high performance setups as well. So this is not an excuse by any stretch. It shouldn't have happened. Let's be blunt. But they're not the only ones who are making these mistakes at the moment. So look, that's it is where we are.
Oh, Paul, and at the moment, you've also got to say the women's game in England is well promoted. We only get to look at that crowd that they had for the Wales game on the weekend, and whilst it was a very one-sided game at the end of the day, wow, that crowd, it didn't worry that crowd one iota. They were a home crowd. They were biased. They were right in there. They were engaged. And listen, it was fantastic to see. And listen, if you're a young lady going along to watch that game, or you're a child, young child, or at that age group where you're impressionable, boy, wouldn't you want to be part of that moving forward?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got 13,000. It just shows that if you put the right investment in, you put the right setup, it will get the you will get the attention. It just needs a bit more, perhaps a bit more sort of innovative thinking around it. Robbie says, how big will the crowds be in New Zealand? I guess you're talking about the Rugby World Cup there. I haven't got a foggiest, actually. It's going to be really interesting to see what kind of crowds we get. I really don't know what we're going to see, because we just don't have anything to benchmark it on, because the Super Rugby Aupaki was all behind closed doors, and the Black Ferns haven't played a standalone game here for a long time. I've got no idea what crowds we're going to get, to be honest.
Yep, Robbie, I think we'll get reasonably good crowds. New Zealanders seem to be quite supportive when they
it comes to World Cups, I probably rated a little bit higher than the World Under-20s tournament, which I've got to say, we didn't always see big crowds when that was played in New Zealand a few years ago. But I'm quite convinced and once again, this comes back to the New Zealand Rugby Union, if they're doing their marketing right, there's no reason why they can't get some crowds along to this games. Obviously, which venues they play the games will also play a part, because one thing we don't want to see is games being played at big empty big stadiums like Eden Park or trust any one of the other 3 or 4 big venues, and only a handful of, maybe a crowd of a couple of thousand in a big stadium. It doesn't look that great.
No, I think all the games are in Whangarei and Eden Park, from memory, or is it Albany Stadium? Anyway, it's basically Northland and Auckland that are hosting it. Robbie says him and his wife want to go see the USA in Whangarei against Italy. That'll be an interesting one. There would hopefully we're going to get to see Australia, the USA, and Canada come and play the Black Ferns in a World Cup warm-up tournament. The Wallaroos just announced 2 games in May, and I've gone blank as who they're playing. I think it's Samoa and someone else or something like that. The Fijiana Drua, the female side in Super W, has just gone through that competition unbeaten, heading into the finals. So good luck to them. That's fantastic, for their debut season. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, and I say it's going to be, the level of interest is going to be interesting. Now, one thing that I did get reminded about the weekend is Sky do not have the rights to the Women's Rugby World Cup. Those rights are held by Spark Sport here in New Zealand, just like the Men's Rugby World Cup is. I think the next one is also with them. So it's going to be interesting again, because obviously Sky, whilst they've been talking about it as part of when the women's games have been on, they're not going to be promoting it in the same. And it'll be interesting to see how Spark Sport go about promoting it in that one as well. So yeah, so I say it'll be interesting for that one. The Trusts Arena, that's the one in Whangarei, is that venue. Simon says, I think the Black Ferns playing the USA, Canada, and Australia in the Pacific Falls tournament. That's correct. That tournament doesn't really properly kick off until next year, but they're doing one. They are doing a part of it this year as well. Is the idea on that one? And yeah, TVNZ will have some of the games on a bit like in the Rugby World Cup. That's what, so I think TVNZ partnered with Spark Sport for that one when it was in Japan. Any final things on the women's game before we move on?
No, not at all, Paul. I think we pretty much covered it. In fact, we've given it a good 25 minutes, so got to be impressed with that.
So then, something that's staying on the international game then, and I asked you, hey, should we get the All Blacks World Cup aeroplane out? And you said, no, Paul, we shouldn't. So I went and had a look at it and just realised that actually what we did after the 29 Rugby World Cup was we took the squad of players and we said, who is around, who's disappearing, who's too old, who's fringe, straight after that Rugby World Cup. And I thought it'd be a good idea to review that now 2 years on or 3 years on, and see how right we got some of those names. So Stephen's had no preparation on this one at all, but this is something we put together in probably about December 2019 as to what we thought the All Black squad was going to kind of look like there. And as you can see, at Loose Head Prop, we had Carl. We said that Joe Moody and Angus Arvo were going to be too old. Well, how wrong we were, because Joe Moody is still knocking around and still looking like he's going to throw a World Cup, Stephen.
It certainly does, because I think when we look at that list there, Jeffrey Tumunga Allen, well, he's basically gone overseas. Is he with Wasps at the moment, Paul?
I see you've already moved on to the tight side, but yeah, he's gone. He's not around, is he? Owen Franks, we were quite right that he would bow out. But Lualala and Tungafasi is still there. Atu Moli has been really unlucky with injuries these past 2 years. Actually, since I've just named him, I had an interview with Atu Moli last week, and that is available on 2 Patrons over at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. And we had a chat to him because he was name checked by Clayton McMillan about building the culture at the Chiefs. So I had a chat about that and also about how he's coming back from his injuries as well. So if you want to have a listen to that, head over there for that interview. But yeah, it's Dane Cole's another player that we thought was too old, but he's still knocking around and still hoping to go to a World Cup as well. Perhaps I was throwing all these players out well before they were ready to go, Stephen.
Oh, very much so. But it just goes to show they've, apart from Samasoni Takiaho, who's obviously took his opportunity in that season-ending tour last year, there's not a lot of guys that have come through. Even if you go back to the props, the only real 2 names that I can see that have come through are probably Ethan de Groot and George Bauer, I think, who have come through into that group that we've got there. Of course, a few that have fallen off the radar, like Tim Perry and Kane Hames. Obviously, Tu'umanga Allen has fallen by the wayside. Atu Moli, who's suffered a couple of injuries. But yeah, that just in terms of the front row, no, not a lot of change.
So not a lot of change there. I'll just move a few of those names around. So as they say, as you say, yes, Samasoni has now got himself as an established All Black. Liam Coleman has disappeared, hasn't he? I think he's gone overseas, hasn't he?
Yes, he will be heading overseas, Liam Coleman.
Yep. Into the locks, and Sam Whitelock is actually still around, who I thought would be too old for the World Cup. Patrick Turpoloto, obviously in Japan at the moment, he'll have to make his way back. I'm actually quite impressed that we actually name checked. We spotted Josh Lord back in 2019. I was well impressed with that.
And to be fair, Paul, he looks really good. We'll get to that Chiefs Blues game, obviously, when we wind down the show. But he's looked every inch a very, very good player. Probably a little bit on the light side, but looks a very athletic lock, good at line out time, and gets through a ton of work around the field.
I mean, a name there, obviously Topu Va'ai has come through there in that space, but otherwise, yeah, you got your Quinton Strange still trying to make it in there. Walker Laurie, he's headed. Yeah, he seems to have perhaps not progressed the way we were hoping for.
Paddy Parkinson.
In that one.
Yeah, Paddy Parkinson. You could probably put in the same boat as well with injury. Of course, Jackson Hemapo is playing overseas at the minute, and once again, not a lot of guys have really come through in that position. Just Josh Lord, Tupu Vai.
Yep. Into the back row, and again, I guess the players that we had in the fringe there, Luke Jacobson going well, Bolter Papali'i, Vai Fafita and Petru Douglas, though, 2 that have gone overseas, that were thereabouts. We look at that up and coming crowd. Devon Flanders playing well, but not made it into the All Blacks yet. Ben Nicholas, the one didn't quite make it. Akiri Iwani, obviously, and Tom Robinson into that kind of fringe area, because Tom Robinson would have been if it hadn't been for head injuries. I think of who else is. I guess we're looking here at Osking Satutu and Soakula.
Yep, he definitely comes into the. He's definitely made his way into the lounge, Paul.
Yep, of 2 players that have come through into there. But again, those are the only 2 names that kind of jump into my mind as to sort of stepped into that space. Really, And actually Blackadder is the other person we've not got in here. He's also
Ethan Blackadder, yeah.
Also come through into that. So a few more coming through into the in the back row. Scrum half. I said Aaron Smith was going to be too old, and so was Brad Webber. Well, they're both still knocking around and helping to go to the World Cup.
And so are Bryn Hall and Mitchell Drummond. They're still around.
They're also still around as well.
Toiroa Tahuarangi still there, but I actually don't see him as somebody that they're looking at. He would have to have a dramatic turnaround in form to put himself in the picture.
Yeah, it's going to be three of those four, isn't it? Of TJ, Aaron, Brad, and Falau.
The only spanner in the works I can see there, Paul, is probably somebody like Finlay Christie, who got on board that end of season tour last year.
Yep, that's true. Yep. Yep, and he's doing good stuff with the Blues. Second 5'8", you're kind of looking at again Bladen Barrett, Richard Moanga, Josh Awani's there, Fletcher Smith and Ty Falcon. Well, they've both kind of disappeared, but Caleb Trask is still knocking around at the Chiefs. I guess you could put Love as a maybe coming through, but not really, is it? I mean, that's pretty much.
The only other guy who seems to have found a little bit of consistency to his game, but he's played mostly at fullback, but he has stepped into the 10 jersey, is Stephen Peterfitter from the Blues.
Yep. Again, another player who basically was held back by injuries, unsurprisingly. Into the centres, and this was an area where we lost Ryan Cross, we lost Sonny Bill Williams. Matt Proct headed overseas, Richard Buckman retired, and and when we had sort of Jack Goodhue, Anton Leonard Brown, we had Lau Mappy, Inks in. Well, he's gone overseas now and was not wanted for some reason. Rico Iwani's in there. Quintapaya and Nankivell, Quintapaya has had a go, Nankivell not yet in the All Blacks setup. I guess the other one is Will Havili, but not Will. David Havili, sorry, who I put down as being too old, will be heading off. He's someone who's got himself as a fringe fielder. And we mentioned Danny Tuala in there as well. Now, obviously, he's playing now for Moana Pacifica, so it wouldn't be an All Black person, but another name who we've picked out who has stepped through.
Yeah, two players who started the season really well were both Peter Umaga-Jensen and Thomas Umaga-Jensen, but in recent times they've had injuries, so we haven't seen a lot of these two lads, which has been a little bit disappointing. And of course, all of a sudden, the injury to Anton Leonard Brown, that All Black midfield looks rather thin.
And as you say, it's one of the things I've been saying for a while now. I think I see Jack Goodhue and Anton Leonard Brown both as 13s, not 12s. And Quintapaya played 13 all the way through until this year. He played all his NPC at 13, but now is converting to a 12. Rico, obviously a 13. Enor, the other player we haven't mentioned, he also is a 13. So, yeah, a real lack of 12s, apart from the guy who has just started playing there in the last 2 weeks, which is Jordy Barrett, who has practically sort of claimed the 12 jersey overnight and come from nowhere to have that one. So that's I think there's a good chance that we'll be seeing him in the midfield with the All Blacks. It's a position that he said he wants to play, which is interesting, and somewhere that he has played at NPC and age group levels as well. So Enor and Umaga-Jensen, a couple that we didn't pick out, and then a couple of players basically moving position in David Havili and Jordy Barrett into that, and also Rico Iwani to a certain degree into that midfield. Back three then, Yep, DMAC, George Bridge, Sever Reese, Jordy Barrett. Yep, they're all still around. Braden Ennor we had as a back three rather than as a centre, but I think he really is a centre, not a back three player. And I guess these so-called up-and-coming players like Hussein, Nariki, Rayasi, Nawara, they're all around, but they haven't really stepped up into that that All Black frame, whereas Caleb Clark and Will Jordan have, actually, I putting them into the fringe is not fair because they're both established. Really, let's be honest.
Well, it's really interesting. The four players on the far side, Ben Smith, Waisaki, Naholo, Neem on the scudder. Well, they're probably past the stage of ever being All Blacks again. And of course, Solomon Alamalo, who's just completely disappeared from the scene. We're not entirely sure why that is, and it certainly hurt the Highlanders in 2022. But once again, you look at it again, and all of a sudden it's got thin in that wing and fullback position.
Well, actually, the one player we've not got on here is Whaianuku, and I'm not going to try and spell it because I'll spell his name totally wrong. Obviously Leicester Whaianuku is in there.
Leicester. I was going to say, just put Leicester in.
Whoops, what happened there? That was not what I meant to do. I've not done that before. Oops, that's one. I was typing in the wrong window. So Leicester's in there. But as you say, there's a couple of names, but on the whole, most of it shows you how, how well New Zealand rugby has their pathways, in that you can see the players who are likely to be playing at the next Rugby World Cup have already showed themselves at Super Rugby ahead of time. So the players who will be playing into the 27 Rugby World Cup for the men will be playing in Super Rugby in 2023, more likely than not. Will have, and there are names that we can probably put down. There'll be one or two that come through, but on the whole, in a kind of like Topu Va'e kind of way, but on the whole, we'll have seen the players ahead of time, which is kind of interesting. In that one, and it's not something that I kind of had sat down before and looked at properly enough to realise. Stephen, he's nodding away. That's good. Right. So that's that bit. We will be looking at getting the probably at the end of Super Rugby. We'll get we'll get the aeroplane to what do you call it? To France, or to set up, and we'll start putting our players in as to who we think are nailed on in the I've got a seat in the departure lounge, waiting at home, and can go on holiday. And we'll see how wrong we get it, because it's fun. I'll be honest, it's really sad to see how Solomon, for example, is a player that I had down as someone that definitely will be an All Black. And unfortunately, it looks like mental health issues have held him back. But let's hopefully he can get over those and come back and play well, because I think he's a cracking player when he was at his best at the Chiefs.
Paul with Super Rugby halfway through, so unless somebody comes out of the woodwork in these last 8 games, and there's probably a couple of players, Sawakula, whilst he was well shut down by the Blues on Saturday night, was one player who I thought maybe was capable of coming through, because I don't really know if that number 8 position for the All Blacks is completely been solved. We've seen Finlay Christie just hit a purple patch of form, the likes of Whakatava. It's taken him a while to get going, but we've just seen semi-sized bites of what he's actually capable. We've seen a couple of other good kids out there. One that I want to see more of is Connor Garden-Bishop. Just looks like he's got a real complete skill set. But, after that, gee, I'd have to say you're really, really scratching maybe somebody like Callum Grace, starting to return to that form when he was first recognised a couple of seasons ago. But once again, I'm really looking hard, but I'm not seeing a lot of pictures.
Look, this Super Rugby season, well, obviously, the first thing is it's good it's happening, okay? But if you're looking at, if you're trying to shine as a player, it's a very difficult season to shine because there's a good chance you've had COVID, which will have impacted your training at some point and will have set you back. If you haven't, then the players that you're playing around and with keep chopping and changing because they keep getting COVID. So you've not had the chance to establish good partnerships in your positions. Next, I can't remember which player it was who said in one of the interviews that basically, look, they've not been able to socialise together. So those off the field kind of connections haven't been built up as they would have done normally. And so that level of trust and stuff that you get on the pitch isn't quite there necessarily with some of those players if you're new to a franchise. And then not only the players change, but the coaches keep changing because the coaches keep getting COVID, or the strength and conditioning person gets COVID, or the physio gets COVID. So you don't actually get so have you managed to have all the massages that you wanted that you would normally have for your recovery? Have you been able to recover properly? Have you been able to get the training that you need for you to shine? Possibly not. So it's not a good season. It's a tough year for players to shine and put their case forward. Now, in the case of Moana Pacifica, it's easier because those players didn't get opportunities before, so they're brand new to us. A lot of us at this level. A lot of them are to our eyes. So Levi Amua, for example, has managed to make a good claim to be in a Super Rugby 15 of the year kind of thing, potentially in that. Leicester will be one of those players who would argue about that 13 jersey, but he's in with a shout there. So I don't think it's been an easy year for players to sort of put their best foot forward, unfortunately, from that point of view. Let's have a quick review of the games then. So we kicked off on Friday night with the Highlanders versus Moana Pacifica. Finished off 37-17 in this one. One again where Moana Pacifica really basically got blown off the park. 16 penalties to only 5 by the Highlanders. The Highlanders basically got themselves in a bit of trouble early on and thought, you know what, guys, the way we're going to win this one is just to line out Maul and play a conservative game and tuck it up the jumper, which is totally not Highlanders style. But I mean, hat tip to them that they can actually do it.
Yeah, listen, and tactically it was very smart. Whilst Justin Marshall probably won't agree with that, Paul, the style in which the Highlanders brought to the night, I think even they realised very quickly, listen, these guys are giving a lot of penalties away. Let's keep it tight. Let's get them to infringe, because if we get a little bit too open and if we leave any ball lying around on the carpet, that's the opportunity for Moana Pacifica to basically to play or put some pressure on us. And unfortunately, 2 yellow cards to Poloniati, the lock, and also Motanga, the forwards. You can't be giving away that 15 or 16 penalties, and on top of that playing 60 minutes of the game with only 14 men. And it ultimately it was all a little bit too much for the Moana Pacifica to handle. Although one thing I will say that we can see they are a very competitive side. They got themselves back to 22-17, but from the kickoff didn't handle the kickoff receive. In fact, 2 minutes after that, they gave away the yellow card and Hunt kicking the penalty, and from there the game was as good as cooked.
Yeah, look, I mean, Hunt obviously was clearly having trouble with the windy conditions down there inside the Capes Inn, because he missed half of his kicks, or more than half of his kicks at goal. Obviously, it's not windy inside the Capes Inn, so he has no excuses at all. But that's a couple of weeks now that he has not been very good off the tee. And whilst I think he's looking good running with ball in hand, he's got to get his goal kicking improved to give his Highlanders a chance against stronger teams. In all honesty, he kept Moana Pacifica in this one in that first half by just missing kicks at goal.
Paul, I was going to say the Highlanders overall will be happy with the win. What they will be disappointed about is the two injuries to Shannon Frizzell and also Manaki Selby-Rickett. Those injuries looked, they didn't look the best. It looks like they could be injuries that could see those two players maybe, if not out for the rest of the season, a considerable amount of it.
Yep, and injuries are a thing that we're going to, as you already mentioned, Antoinette Brown earlier, are going to be a thing for the for this round. We followed that one up with Western Force losing to the Rebels 21-22 at home. I didn't see this one coming, but to be fair, the Rebels have been an improving side. I mean, they've still got a long, long way to improve, but they have done again. 3 missed conversions for the Force. Any one of those obviously would have won this game, being a 1-point game. But so again, kicking your goals is very important. The Force outscored the Rebels 3-2, but 13 penalties and watching 5 of them sail between the sticks. Their own worst enemies, I think, there for the Force.
Yeah, very, very much so. Plus, on top of that, a little bit of early discipline as well. Kane Korteka picking up a yellow card, but not long after that, Matt Tumua with a yellow card. And of course, Ray New picked up a red card for a high tackle for the Rebels, and that was pretty much on the 49th minute. So still another 31 minutes to go, but unfortunately the Force not good enough to take the opportunity of that. And whilst they seem to have reasonable set pieces, it's just probably not a lot of penetration in this Western Force side. I found this game a very, very hard watch. Both teams struggling to get anything going in terms of attack.
Well, Mattielli, one of the few bright lights on that in that Force side. But look, the Force lost 5 lineouts. The Melbourne Rebels lost 3. The scrums, you don't see it. I mean, Force lost 3 scrums. Rebels lost 5 scrums. That set piece was a mess on the night for this one, I'm afraid. I only caught highlights, but that's a bit of a mess on the night. Not the greatest advert for rugby.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, always a game that the Force were chasing. Of course, the Rebels got out to 13-0 after 20 odd minutes, and then Korteka basically got picked up his yellow card, and I always just felt they were chasing that game, even though they got back to 22-21 with 5 minutes to go, which seemed a bit random to me. When you're basically a converted try behind, or just a try behind, why you actually wouldn't kick to the corner. Strange.
Yep. And then on to Saturday, the Hurricanes hosted the Crusaders. Now I missed the first half as I was driving to FMG Stadium for the Chiefs versus the Blues, but all the talk has been about what happened in the final 2 minutes at the end of the day, not really what happened in the previous 78. Lots of scoring that first half, 18-17 at halftime. In the second half, just the one try in it. As I say, I missed that first half, but you've been singing the praises of Jordy Barrett at 12, so obviously he had a good game. Any other sort of points from that first half before we get on to that last 2 minutes?
Yeah, overall he was very solid. Listen, he I think 18 carries. He's physical. He does most things, and listen, I think he straightens that Hurricanes backline well. Their set piece was reasonable. I expected them to come under a lot more pressure, but I always felt the Crusaders just had them at arm's length. Couple of nice tries. Will Jordan's getting his customary try off. Some good work from Richie Moanga, and then Quentin Strange goes in, and then George Bridge. So it looks like they could put on a try whenever they could, but the Hurricanes always managed to stay with them. Listen, like the look of Josh Morby at fullback, looks really good, does most things right, and he created a very good try for Griffey, and then basically picked up one himself. So a good game from the Canes fullback.
Yeah, and they've got Ruben Love, who can also play back there as well, and obviously Jordy Barrett. So I mean, there's lots of options at fullback there. I just thought I'd bring up the try scoring stats, and Will Jordan is on less than 3 because he's not even on the not in the top, unless the stats haven't been updated. But Tom Wright leads the way with 7 tries currently for the Brumbies, followed by Kurt Eklund and Lester Faganuku, both with 5. Kurt Eklund obviously getting that hat trick the other night. And then you've got Caleb Clark, Will Harris, Carl Godwin, Maniasi Matielli, and Onisi Ravave, all on 4 tries. So, yeah, you think of Will Jordan as a try-scoring machine, and yet he doesn't seem to be on the on the list for some reason. There you go.
Just wondering if there's an assists stats there, Paul. I'm pretty sure he's probably had a few assists in some of the tries that the Crusaders have scored.
Yes, probably. On that, there isn't assists. There is defenders beaten though, but he's not on that one either. Some of the Fijian Brewer Habossi is there with 36 defenders beaten so far. So good on that one. Meters carried is probably where we're going to see Will Jordan, and yeah, he's number 3 in that one. With Mattielli with the force is number 1.
Paul, I got to say, strange second half. That the Hurricanes with plenty of opportunities, and I think they probably had enough ball to win this game, but it was only really Barrett just kicking another penalty, which pushed the Canes out to 21-17. But only a couple of minutes later, and this is once again the Hurricanes failing to clear out of their red zone, giving the opportunity, and Ethan Blackadder powering over from close range in Moanga with the conversion, and you just thought, the Crusaders will maybe take out this game, but there was a lot of toing and froing, and it really wasn't until that sort of fateful last part of the game that we'll get to, Paul.
Again, as you say, 35 points in the first half, only 10 in the second half. We've had a few games like that now that had lots of points in the first half and then nothing in the second. So it's a bit of a trend this season, but you're right. Time's up. You've got a penalty, or there was like a minute left. That's within range of Jordy to knock it over, get 3, and you go into extra time. Or do you kick to the corner, and do you risk a 60% line out stat, or actually it would have been they won that line out, so it would have been it would have been even better than that. But a 60% line out stat, you've lost 4 already. Do you go for the corner? Well, apparently, if you are Jason Holland, the head coach, then you radio down to Corey Jane. Corey Jane runs on the pitch, tells the players what to do because, hey, the captain is not really a captain anymore nowadays, is he? Let's be honest. And the water boy tells Ardy, go for the corner. First off, I don't like the fact that the water boy is allowed to run on the pitch, and that should be a red card for Corey Jane. But secondly, going to the corner was the wrong option, in my opinion. Now, Ardy's had mouthed off about the referee. Yes. Scott Barrett was attached to his arm in the air. Yes, Scott Barrett landed on the Hurricane side of the line out, and the maul formed around him, and he then laid down and blocked the ball coming out. But the referee didn't blow it, and therefore everything he did was legal, and therefore he won the game. Congratulations. Now, yes, the referee is taking a lot of flack for that, and also for a high tackle, I think, that I've missed. Play the percentages, take the 3.
Yeah, interesting. You speak about percentages, and for me, I don't know if you watch a lot of American sport, but in American sport, if there's an opportunity to draw a game and go into extra time, whether it's NFL or basketball, that's what they do. They don't go for some super play to win the game 3-pointer. They will hit the basket if they actually need two points to actually take it into overtime. I just think, given the Hurricanes at best have got a bit of a, a bit of a shaky set piece line out. Not a lot of real jumping options in their team. That's the first thing. Second thing is, you're going to try a line out drive against probably defensively and statistically probably the best team around when it comes to defending line out drives. To me, the decision was just nuts. It didn't make any sense at all. I think you're best to basically draw it. I think as a home team, I think you got a bit of momentum going your way, and if you do a couple of correct things from the kickoff, take the kickoff receive, try and at least play some of the game down in the other half with a good chase line, try and get a turnover, a penalty. To me, that was a much better option, because even the best teams, as we know, can panic under pressure. Just on the refereeing performance of Brendan Pickerel, the only real issue that I've got, there are times I felt that he was very reluctant to use the TMO. Even there was a try that was scored by the Crusaders where there was a clear knock on, and it was seen in real time. The commentators mentioned it, and boy, he had to be convinced to go to the TMO. Now, what I actually have found out in the last 48 hours, there was a directive from Bryce Lawrence to all the referees to try and, where they can, refrain from using the TMO. Now, that just absolutely does my head in, because, as we know, they will go looking their best to find foul play out there. Well, if you want to get decisions right 100% of the time, to me, you've got to use the TMO 100% of the time, not when you feel like it. Just saying.
Yeah, this is pressure, obviously, for it to be from the entertainment side of things. Oh, look, we've got to make it entertaining, yada yada. Look, at the end of the day, what people say, oh, look, making these high shots, red cards is going to kill the game. No, what's killing the game is inconsistency of refereeing. The only way you're going to get consistency is if you actually use that TMO and keep it going. Ouch! Oh dear, folks. I've just had an email in from the Chiefs. The second, let's check it's not embargoed. No, it's not been embargoed. The Gallagher Chiefs can provide the following update on the injury of Anton Leonard-Brown sustained in round 8 of Super Rugby against the Blues. It's been confirmed that Anton will require surgery on his shoulder that was injured last Saturday. He's expected to return to rugby after approximately 6 months. So that's the end of his Super Rugby season, unfortunately, and may be available for the end of year tour. But that looks like the earliest he's going to be back. So really sad news that Anton Brown is out for what looks like 6 months from that shoulder injury for something that looked like a fairly innocuous rucking incident, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's boy, that's very disappointing. I know the All Black coaching staff will be very disappointed as well. But like you said, injuries happen.
Yep, it does. We will. So let's move on to that Chiefs game against the Blues, and wow, 0-25. This is the first time in 360 odd games that the Chiefs have been nilled. They have never been nilled before in their existence. 3 disallowed tries didn't help them, to be honest, but neither did choosing not to kick sticks at any point as well. Look, the Chiefs definitely had their opportunities to score in this one, and and put some points up. But the Blues tackled, defended extremely well, coped with 3 yellow cards in this game, and got themselves in front and then defended brilliantly. And you got to say, well done to the Blues. A lot of people saying this is perhaps the most complete or the best Blues performance they've seen, well, if not ever, but at least recently.
Oh, Paul, I've got to say, definitely the best away performance. I think I might have had black hair the last time that they actually put in such a committed effort. It wasn't perfect by any stretch, Paul, because at the end of the day they got three yellow cards. We heavily penalised, but in terms of commitment and a complete 80-minute performance by the guys who were on the field when they were down to 14, you've got to say big ups to them. Huge performance. On a given day, another given day, if that commitment wasn't there 100%, the Chiefs probably go in for 4 tries.
Absolutely. I mean, look, let's say they had 3 disallowed. There were other opportunities as well that if it wasn't for committed defence, they would have gone over. And let's say 3 yellow cards, 2 players down just before half time when at 13 men, the Chiefs really should have scored, but fantastic defence. Now, this was Dalton Papali'i's 50th game in this one, and you can see all the post-match, or the best bits of the post-match interviews over at patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio, including Dalton talking about what 50 caps means to him, and talking about his club rugby as well. In there, we also get Clayton McMillan and Sam Kane showing you just quite how hurt they were after that game. It was also Alex Nankivell's 50th game for the Chiefs, and folks, he is auctioning off his jersey for Cure Kids. It was over $1,000 when I last checked on Trade Me for that jersey. So if you'd like to get hold of that jersey, then you can check out my Twitter at DrivingMaul, and I've retweeted the Chiefs link to that to bid for that jersey. Also, I'm hoping to have an interview with Alex Nankivell tomorrow, talking about his 50th game, or talking about what it means to play 50 games for the Chiefs, and also the fact that he is auctioning off his jersey for Cure Kids. So a cracking move by him for what is a very special jersey for him to have committed that to for Cure Kids is a fantastic move by him.
Yeah. Oh, totally agree, Paul. Totally agree. Listen, I've got to say, it was also great to see Bladen Barrett back on the paddock. Probably, you've got to say, his best game, ironically, in a Blues jersey as well. But boy, you've got to get a lot of ups to the Blues pack. Probably for the first 30 minutes of the game, that pack clearly dominated the Chiefs at scrum time. But in reality, they were only up 10-0. And when the Chiefs finally did get into a position to apply a bit of pressure, it came via a couple of yellow cards. But I think for them, they'd be livid that they weren't able to capitalise on that numerical advantage. But more importantly, I think there'll probably be some soul searching after being kept to a big donut for the first time in their history.
Yeah, look, I mean, Clayton McMillan took on some of the blame himself. He said, look, we practice what to do if you lose players and go down to 13. What we don't practice, or haven't practiced in the past, is what do you do if the opposition goes down to 13 men? And you're like, it's obvious, isn't it? It's gonna. If you're practicing for it to happen to you and how you defend it, you should also practice how to attack it. And yeah, clearly that's something that they hadn't, that they've just like, our normal patterns will work, blah blah blah. It doesn't, right? Because the opposition defend in a different way. So you've got to think how you find that space changes. And it was something that I was listening to an Irish podcast about the game between Leinster and Connacht. And a similar sort of thing happened there. Leinster, Connacht lost a player early. Leinster couldn't figure out how to take advantage of that until half time, because at half time the coaches took them in and said, okay, guys, this is how you change your game plan. The players didn't know how to change their game plan against a side that had less players. So, yeah, clearly, as you say, a bit of soul searching, not only by the the coaches as to how they should have prepared the players better for that situation as well. But yeah, an interesting one. I mean, we talked a lot about in the past about teams, about preparing how to deal with being down to 14 men. We haven't talked much about how to attack, or what an attacking side should do and how they should change their approach. But yeah, it was interesting to see that happen. But yeah, once they couldn't score at around half time, that's really where the game just went away from them. We should also mention Sam Nock as well. So I mean, the Chiefs lost 2 players pre-game in run up to it. Had to make 2 changes on the day, plus Anthony Brown, which meant their backline was totally disorganised. In also didn't help, but that's no excuse. On the Blues side, Finlay Christie pulled up during the warm-up and was replaced by Sam Nock. Now, Finlay Christie is someone who came on for the Blues against Moana Pacifica and sorted them out and really organised them. And is a great leadership, important player for them. So again, credit to the Blues not to be able to play the way they did and lose a leader just before the game. Then Sam Nock comes on, breaks his hand in the first, 3 or 5 minutes, whatever it was. And go play the next 60 minutes or 70 minutes with a broken hand. Well done. We'll all go, congrats. Wow, he battled through that pain. Well done, blah, blah, blah. How much damage did he do to himself? Should we be asking players to do that? But hey, it is what it is. It's what they do. I don't want to glorify playing through pain in that kind of way. And he's now out for 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, I kind of understand. That, Paul. But sometimes when you're out there and you've had an injury like that, maybe sometimes you don't always understand the degree of the injury. May have just had it taped up. It's a little bit like when you see guys roll their ankle and they look like they've just about used about 3 tape rolls and they've taped the boot up. And it must take them about 10 minutes to take their boot off at the end of the game, and then it's really only in the cold light of day, once the body's cooled down a bit, that they kind of realise, what this is a grade 3 sprain or a grade 4 sprain, or even something more niggly, and I don't think they find out till the end of the game. So I just wonder if it might have been one of those cases.
Yeah, it's amazing what adrenaline does. I think Nonu played through a broken arm for a long time as well during a game, and just whilst I just can't believe how he does it, and I'm amazed by it. It's something I don't want to glorify as well, but yeah, I do get why it happens. Finally, Fijian Drua against the Brumbies, 12-33, and pretty much again a game I was driving back from Hamilton. I've watched the highlights, but I'll be honest, I didn't pay that much attention. A yellow card after 4 minutes didn't help them. And because the reason I didn't pay much attention is essentially it's what we kind of thought would happen, right? A relatively comfortable victory by the Brumbies, 12-0 at half time. Yes, the Fijian Drua came back and scored a couple of tries in the second half, but never got within less than 2 scores. So yeah, it was a bit of one way on this one, and to be expected. The Fijian Drua are a battling team, but the Brumbies, winners of Super Rugby AU 2 years ago, finalists last year, it's kind of what we expect, right?
It is, Paul. It's a bit disappointing. Listen, I posted, I'll share this with your viewers. I put this on the Fiji Drua Facebook site. Listen, I thought the Fiji Drua would be a great addition, but man, someone needs to tell them it's a team game, not a game for individuals, capable of brilliance out of nothing for long periods, but at times looking like they've met in the car park, especially in and around set pieces. So for me, I want to see some improvement, but just be wary. They've still got the New Zealand teams to come who will be far more ruthless than the Australian teams. Full credit to the Brumbies. they didn't put their, took an opportunity to rest a few players. There were a few new bods running around, but I thought it was very similar to the game against the Moana Pacifica playing the Highlanders. They recognised they didn't need to move the ball around too much, just basically go to their set piece, pull penalties off line-out drives and scrums, get field position, and I think maybe 3 of their tries all came from line-out drives. And, of course, the more mistakes the Fiji Drua made, they came with infractions as well, which gave the Brumbies plenty of field position. Real professional win. The one guiding light was Ratuvai, who played for the Bay of Plenty Steamers, or Nessie Ratuvai, who scored 2 tries and looked really dangerous whenever he had the ball. But there's still a lot of individualism about this Fiji Drua side, Paul.
Yep. As Simon says, look, both Fiji, the President Drua and the Moana Pacifica need time, just like the Hakiwaris had 4 years. People need to shut up about tinkering the competition format. I didn't realize we were talking about changing the competition format. I've not seen, but yeah, no, I think we're going to stick with what we've got for the next. Well, they've said that it's at least next year. But yeah,
listen, I hear where Simon's coming from, but I think with MP, I think we're seeing incremental improvements, and the issues that they're having are really fixable. We're talking about guys overstepping an offside line. I think MP probably gave away, out of those 15 penalties, they probably gave half a dozen of them away for just simply being offside, Paul. To me, those are fixable, where I kind of look at MP at the moment and they are really struggling with their set piece at the moment. And that's basically deliverance into the line out, basically structure from the back of their club, and accuracy in passes. And of course, that all leads to discipline. There's a whole lot more work to be done with the Fiji Drua.
Yep. And whilst we're nowhere near as close to the Fiji and Drua as we are with Moana Pacifica, we've heard a lot more from them. About what a wonderful environment they've got there, and it's just a matter of time for those players. With the Fijian one, I guess the other situation is you've got a lot of players in that Fijian Drua situation who are from a sevens background, which again isn't as set piece orientated, and they've got and adapting to that is hopefully going to happen, but could take time. We're kind of well over time now. I will don't forget, tomorrow night we've got the Hurricanes versus Moana Pacifica. As we've already said, the weather could be a real leveler in that one. So folks, don't expect open flowing rugby. And I will put up my gone blank, my predictions for the rest for the next round of Super Rugby games. But for tomorrow night, I've gone Canes by 10 at the moment. What do you reckon about that one?
I think they'll want a bit of it'll be fresh in the memory the last time these two teams met on the upside. I think the Moana Pacifica might be lucky again. I can't see Ari Savia playing. He looked pretty ginger from what I saw on the weekend, so I'll be surprised if he fronts up again. Of course, Sikopi Kefu will be missing for Moana Pacifica in their team that was named today, Paul. Just looking at the weather for tomorrow, looks definitely like the showers. Showers will be coming in tomorrow, so it'll be a wet one at Trust Stadium.
Yeah, a lot of changes that for the Moana Pacifica team, as you'd expect. I was a bit surprised to see Tuala and Amua both starting in the centres again, which is a good partnership they're building up there. But you got to wonder how have they managed to recover from Friday night with that one. To be honest with you, with the Hurricanes, they're as you say, they're missing Ali Surveyor. Blake Gibson gets a 7 jersey. Reed Prinsep will be captaining from 6, with Flanders at 8. So yes, a couple of players on debut as well, with Kaimu Karuru Symes in the hooker one, with James O'Reilly starting, there could be a bit of an issue there at hooker. Is that clearly with Amua and Coles both not available there. Jared Prophet also looks like he might be debutanting from as a prop from the bench. So perhaps not the set piece dominance that Moana Pacific have had to deal with in the past. Maybe a bit, maybe not quite as strong a set piece from the Hurricanes with those debutants in there. But but we still have got Morgan gets a 10 jersey, Ruben Love at 15. Josh Morby drops to the bench there as well. Another player you've mentioned in that one. But it's good to see Rayasi back because he's been missing for a few weeks. And a player that a lot of us think is perhaps the most underrated player, definitely the most underrated winger in New Zealand, by coaches at least, if not by fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be putting up the rest of my predictions onto the Patreon sites. Head over there, patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. That'll probably be on a Wednesday or Thursday, because I say that hopefully the Alex Nankerville interview will go up tomorrow. Folks, have a great week. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me yet again. And folks, don't forget, join us 8 p.m. on Mondays for the DrivingMaul show. You can also watch it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or search for the podcast New Zealand Sport Radio.